Hey you guys, we're back with another video, and today's video is gonna be on, can your MBTI personality change or does it just remain static? So the way I like to think about it is that each personality type will fit into one of four categories, and I'm gonna put a picture up here. But basically, if depending on what your personality type is, you will also have three other personality types. Depending on what category you fall into. So using INFJ as an example, someone who's INFJ will also have traits of the ENFJ, which is their more extroverted self, and they'll also have the traits of the ESTP, which is the INFJ's shadow, and the ISTP, which is their shadow except a little bit quieter. And so given this dynamic based on what category you fall into, you will basically have four personality types, and you will kind of interchange in between all four of these, depending on what the situation is, right? So depending on what your emotional state is, if you're in a state of joy, if you're in a state of happiness, if you're stressed out, if you're sad, different aspects of your personality are going to emerge, and depending on what your emotional state is, it will determine which of the four personality types from that category will emerge. So let's use INFJ as an example. Let's say your main core personality type is INFJ. So you're very grounded, you're very calm, you're very altruistic, you're trying to think of what is the best solution for everyone. Depending on the situation, you will become another personality type based on your category in order to accompany the situation. So for example, let's say that you are called to lead a group of people, right? There's so many airplanes today. Let's say that you are called to lead a group of people. So let's say you're INFJ and you're called to lead a group of people, right? You need to give them direction. You basically need to tell them what to do, which is not a very natural INFJ thing to do, because an INFJ leans more towards introversion, which is the I. Leading people is more of an ENFJ thing, right? Because they're better at being extroverted. They're being able to better at communicating what they're thinking to the group dynamic. And so, in this situation, the INFJ may put on a mask and become more of their ENFJ self, right? This is to allow them to, basically accompany the situation, because the situation calls for the INFJ to become an ENFJ in that moment in order to make sure things go smoothly. And so the INFJ will be able to do that. But at the same time, the INFJ is not able to keep up this mask forever, right? It drains them of their energy because they are naturally more introverted. And so if they have to adopt this persona for a very long period of time, it will start to wear down on them, and then eventually the mask will slip, and they'll become either their natural self, which is the INFJ, and so they'll head off somewhere alone to recharge, or they will start to get stressed out and they'll start becoming their ISTP or ESTP self, right? And when this happens, then you can start to see kind of a different side to the person. It's not that the person is, let's say, being asshole or being a dick. It's just that maybe they're stressed out because they've always had to keep putting on this mask that isn't who they really are. And so when the mask slips, they will revert into their shadow self, which is the other personality types that fall within the category, right? So for example, the INFJ, when they have to put on a mask and be very charming and be able to lead people, they'll become an ENFJ. But then when an INFJ is stressed, then he'll fall into either ISTP or ESTP, which is getting maybe confrontational with people, or refusing to see other people's perspectives and being stubborn, something like that, right? So your personality type will change to a certain degree, but it will not change. I don't think it will change in terms of jumping from. So your personality type can kind of change depending on what the situation calls for, as long as it falls within the same category that you belong to. But in terms of changing from one category to another, it is very unlikely. Because if that happens, then all of a sudden you will get what I guess medical experts diagnose as like bipolar or multiple personality disorder. And the reason for this is not because there's something wrong with the person, it's just that they are jumping from one category to another one, and because the category is such a drastic like difference in terms of the personalities that they are exhibiting, then they call them as kind of like being bipolar or multiple personality disorder. I would say that the only instances in which this actually does happen is if someone goes through like very severe trauma or hardship that makes it so that their old personality can no longer exist. So like, I'm not going to say it, but you know, like very severe accidents, right? Like life-threatening accidents, or maybe like their entire perspective on life has completely changed because of a certain event that triggered that change. And so in these moments, then a person may they may like jump from one category to another. But in most cases, this jump is not really their true personality type, right? In most cases, if someone does jump from one category to another, it's because they were putting on a mask this whole time that basically prevented them from realizing who they really were, right? So one example I can give you is I once had an INTP friend, right? He was very cynical when it came to like anything positive. It was like a teacher's birthday, and then we were all like chipping in money to like get him a cake, and then he was like very adamant in refusing to participate in this like celebration, because he was basically like, you know, like, this is stupid, right? Why do we celebrate like people's birthdays? Why do we have like happiness and joy, right? And so for a few years he was quite like, he had this kind of like stubborn mentality when it comes to like celebrations or like having more happiness in his life. So I would put him in the category of INTP at this moment, right? But then a few years later, he told me that he had an accident in which he was crossing the road and he almost got hit by a car. And in that moment, basically, his life flashed before his eyes, and he was just like, oh my God, I almost died that day. And then from that point forward, he basically made a change and said like, I should stop being so like cynical about life. I should actually like celebrate moments of happiness, because it's not like stupid, right? Celebrating moments of happiness is like it's like a normal thing to do as a human, right? I shouldn't be so negative all the time, right? I should allow myself to be positive and not try to resist that. And so he jumped from being an INTP into the category of like being an ISFP. And so he stopped taking things that seriously. And he overall became just like a much more positive person. He's always like, instead of looking towards the negative spectrum, he's now looking more towards the positive spectrum. So that is an example of how someone's personality type might change and jump from one category to another. But in reality, I think the reason why he had the INTP persona in the first place was because he was picked on a lot when he was younger. In school, he was like kind of bullied because he had like a physical handicap. And so as a kid, he might have been an ISFP, but then because of the way the world treated him, then he had to become an INTP, which is really a mask to protect himself for the personality type that he actually was, which is an ISFP. And so he fell into the category of ISFP. That was his natural personality type, but because of the way the world treated him, the way the way the world treated him, the way his life had to unfold, and the skills he had to learn in order to be able to survive, then he had to become an INTP and become like the cynical person. Because I guess for him, showing any kind of like emotional positivity or like being honest with his emotions or being vulnerable, it did not help him with his like daily life. And so there are moments, I'd say, where your personality type can change, but in most cases it should probably stay in the same category that it belongs to, unless there is like a severe trauma, like with the example that I just provided. At the same time, you could also say that everyone is able to access all the personality types, right? So there's 16 personality types, and as you know, a human can become like who they want to be in, depending on the situation. So an INFJ could be an ENTJ, an INFJ could be an ENFP, like depending on what the situation calls for. But at the end of the day, they will not remain in that personality type. They will not remain as that personality type. If they do change the personality, if there is a change in a person's personality type, it is most likely a mask. It is temporary, and it will fall off once the situation does not call for it anymore. So in terms of like, can you change your personality type? I would say only to a certain degree. So at the core of who you are still going to be the personality type that you were as a kid. And that is the most accurate way, I believe, to type your MBTI type, is to do a test and give answers based on your beliefs or your fundamental like opinions based on who you are as a kid and not who you are as an adult. Because as you grow up, the world can be cruel, and it can force you to put on a mask which will disguise who you actually are. So yeah, to summarize this video, can your personality type change? I would say yes, as long as it falls within the category that it belongs to, which is the 4 categories. Again, I'll put it up here so you can take a look at it. Your personality type will basically fluctuate between these 4, depending on what the situation calls for. But again, at the end of the day, you are going to fall back into your main personality type in order to like rest and recharge. Another way you can think of it is you can also look at the functions. So everyone has 4 functions that make up their personality type. These functions are in a certain order, and if they get interchanged or moved around, then you become a new personality type, right? So for example, with INFJ, their first 2 functions are NI and FE, and then for an ENFJ, the functions are the other way around. So it's FE is first, and then NI is second. And so depending on, again, the situation, if an INFJ feels that they need to put the group dynamic first before anything else, then they'll become an ENFJ, and they'll become more of an altruistic leader. But this means, sacrificing their ability to foresee future events, which is their NI. Yeah, so I think, that's it for this video. Shout out to Cloudy from Discord for making this recommendation to make this video, and for anyone else who has, and for others who haven't joined the Discord, make sure you do so. If you want to like make any kind of like video suggestions, if you want to just ask any questions that you may have, or like just talk about MBTI in general, make sure you join the Discord for more information on how you can do that. And I think that's it for this video. As always, see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day, and peace out. Hope you're having a great week. Valentine's Day is coming up, so if you're single, make sure you spend time by yourself, because that is the person that you should love the most. And if you are in a relationship, make sure you do get your relationship partner something that they're looking forward to, something hopefully based on their MBTI type. Anyway, that's it for this video. See you in the next one, and that's it. Goodbye.